From an academic perspective, I think it starts with empowerment. When we think about what's being learned and what's being taught in schools, I like to think about voice and choice for students. I think about when we think about how we plan for students, how are we seeing what students are excited about, what they want to learn about, and how are we incorporating that into our curriculum? I know there are a lot of schools across our districts that are doing project-based learning, which really takes a core problem, and in some cases a very real problem in their community, and is saying, how would you all tackle this? Let me give you the tools that might help you answer that question, but let me give you ownership of this problem. Let me give you the resources and be a guide as opposed to I have all the information as a teacher. Someone asked me the other day who my favorite teacher was, and I hadn't been asked that ever really, I think. But immediately the answer came to my mind, and it was Miss Rousseff, and that was my 10th grade English teacher. And what I thought about why it was because we had our assigned reading in classes, but what was different about her was she cared about what was important to me and what I was reading. And she uplifted my love of poetry and song and all those other things that we can develop literacy through. And so voice and choice is such a critical part of empowering students and letting them thrive. How do we create a culture where everyone feels a sense of belonging? Because you can't thrive if you can't show up every day in school as your authentic self. And so what environments are we creating in schools so that every student feels they have a place, they have a space, that they are seen and they are heard and they are valued? That leads to thriving. When I was in school, thriving meant something very different, as I'm sure it did with all of my fellow panelists. Today, to thrive in school, I think is a very different thing. And belonging is going to be a really, really critical part of that. And lastly, I would say that in order for students to feel empowered to thrive, I think talking about emotional literacy is an important thing. So maybe you all have heard something in your schools about social emotional learning. It sounds like an interesting catchphrase, but it's a really important thing. It's thinking about what am I feeling, what am I experiencing, and how do I say the words about what that is? How do I communicate with other people? How do I share what's going on in my mind so that I have a sense of this is a moment and this moment will pass, but what are my tools that I can enact right now? And I think it's part of school's responsibility to give you those tools, right? I know personally in my household, one of my kids really found a love of flight through gaming and now wants to be a pilot. And that's a really, really incredible opportunity if we can use gaming to help people find parts of their passion or parts of the things that they love. So there is kind of space to say, how do we take these tools that can be really challenging on one hand and really use the benefits that they have in a way that's super positive. But I do think there's an opportunity in how we incorporate gaming and combining that with what are students' passions, what do they love to do. I have never met a parent that said that they wish they had given their child a device earlier. So I think there is a continued conversation, as you were mentioning, parent partnership with parents is like, are we delivering the same messages and how can we reinforce what you're trying to do at home? And vice versa, how can homes reinforce what we're trying to talk about at school? That partnership is such a critical thing. So it all starts with what you all want. So make sure you're communicating that to your parents. You know, having this phone is hard for me. Can you help me manage that? Right? And it's okay to ask your parents for help. They actually would love it if you ask them for help. But we have to do this in partnership.